Hello. It is my 12-year anniversary of traveling the world out of carry-on luggage. And to celebrate that, I wanted to do a question and answer with you. So I asked you what questions you wanted to know, and I have picked out my favorites. There were a lot of them, and I'm just going to go through them one by one and give you my answers to them. And hopefully that is useful. Hopefully it is entertaining. Hopefully it is all the things. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for being on this journey with me. And let's get to it. Okay, so the first question is, imagine that I am a stranger that you have met in the airport lounge. What is the one story that you would share with me that would get me to drop everything and travel the world just like me? I love this question. And the first story that came to my mind is actually the story where I fell in love with Bali for the first time. So this was back in 2012. I was couch surfing with a local guy and I was just exploring the island on my scooter. And as I was doing this, I had gone out for like a 2-day trip around the island and I was coming back. And so this was before Google Maps was really a thing. I didn't have cell phone data. And so I was really relying on my own sense of direction, the things that he had shown me before I left to help me get back to his little apartment. And as I was coming back, I got lost. And as I'm driving around, I can feel myself getting more and more frustrated as I cannot find my way back. And I'm starting to get worried. I'm starting to get scared. And as this is happening, it starts to rain. And I can feel myself getting more and more angry as the rain is pouring down. I don't really have the proper rain gear. I'm traveling with my backpack that has everything that I own in the world, my passport, my camera, my computer, all of my belongings. And I can feel myself getting more and more angry as I feel more and more lost. And as I'm driving on this scooter and I'm getting splashed by cars driving by, I'm splashing myself. I have this realization that, wow, holy shit, where I am right now on the other side of the world, nobody knows me. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody knows where I am. And I am in complete, utter freedom. And I have this realization that this moment, this feeling, is what I have been chasing for the past 10 years. And I realized that, wow, I am completely free right now. This is everything that I have wanted. The rain is warm and this energy goes from, oh my God, I am so lost. I'm never going to be able to get back, and feeling anxious about it, to this feeling of like, oh my God, I'm lost at last. And this feeling that comes from being so spectacularly lost. And I have this moment of gratitude of, wow, I'm here. This is what I've been dreaming of. This feeling, being so completely at peace with being lost, being free. And I also realize in this moment that I'm the same person in the same situation, getting rained on, lost on a tropical island. In one version of that, I'm angry and pissed off at the world. And in the other version of that, I am completely free and at peace. And I have this realization that, wow, it's always a choice. It's my choice to decide how I want to react to any situation. And I can react like this, in anger and resentment and anxiousness, or I can react like this in love, peace, and abundance. And that is the moment that I fell in love with Bali, that I fell in love with this style of life, this constant reminder that it's all a choice. And this feeling of freedom is something that I wish everyone got to experience. Okay, the next question. You have been to 43 countries. Tell me about an experience where you felt completely out of your depth and unprepared, and how did you handle that, and what did you learn from it? This is a moment that I constantly remember. And I was traveling through Europe. I had like a 3-month Euro pass where I was just traveling all over on the trains, staying in hostels, living out of my backpack. And I was towards the end of that 3 months, and I was in Hungary, in Budapest. And I went out from the hostel just to grab a quick bottle of wine, grab some food, and I was coming right back. I was gone for maybe 15 minutes. I came back to the hostel and I walked in, said hello to my friends, told them that I was just going to go grab my phone from my backpack that I had left there charging, and I would be right with them to enjoy the bottle of wine that I had just gotten for us. And as I'm doing that, a guy passes me. And so I walk into my room, go open my backpack to get my phone, and it's gone. And I have this moment of fear hit me, but then kind of realized like, oh no, maybe it was just the cleaner who came in and moved it. And then that sense of panic hits me again of, oh no, something is actually wrong. And so I go into my backpack, start looking through it, and realize my computer is gone, my camera is gone, and my phone is gone. And so these were like the main, like the most expensive things that I had. Luckily, I kept my passport on me, but I realized that all of my electronics were gone. And I still remember just the pit of my stomach, just, this feeling of like being violated, that someone had gone into my things and taken these valuable possessions of mine, and I'm probably never going to see them again. And I still remember that panic set in of, oh my God, I'm halfway around the world. I still have 6 or so months left in this trip, and I no longer have any electronics. How am I going to get in contact with people? All these things start rushing through my head. If anyone has ever had their stuff stolen, you probably recognize this feeling of panic and of dread and of like violation. And so I immediately run out, like realize it was that guy that I had just passed. And long story short, I do not get any of this stuff back. I am stuck in Hungary for another week or so, filling out police reports, and like trying to understand what I'm going to do. I had to get my mom to ship me a new phone so that I could stay in contact and just have something to continue to plan and use for information as I travel. And I remember being so angry, like, again, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening? But one of the things that I did on this trip was that I started a journaling habit. And part of that journaling practice was to every day write out at least 3 to 5 highlights from the day. And so I remember sitting down in the morning the next day, going to write that journal entry and just feeling like, ugh, what are the highlights of this day that was up until that point the worst day of that trip? And so I remember sitting down and being like, ugh, what am I going to write about that are my highlights? And sitting with that, feeling that rage and anger coming up, and then starting to notice, oh, wow, there actually were very, very beautiful moments during that day. The hostel employee that took time out of his day to come down to the police office with me and take my report and help me translate it into Hungarian so that I could get the report, so that I could file my travel insurance and start getting money back so that I could replace these items. Or the other hostel employee that invited me to stay with her and her family because the hostel was out of rooms and I needed a place to stay. And so she invited me to come and stay a few nights with her and her family, and we're just such wonderful hosts. Or my friend that I was traveling with that helped me go and like stake out the train station and look for this guy that had taken my stuff. And so I started to realize, oh, wow, how easy it is for a situation to be colored by the lens that we're looking at it through. And so in my mind, I had gotten all my stuff stolen, and this day was a horrible day. And while that is true, it's also true there were all these other beautiful moments that I could have forgotten if I chose to just focus on the shitty thing. And so this was a super powerful lesson. And one of the reasons why I love journaling so much, and it's the habit that has changed my life, is this ability to ground myself into reality, to get out of the voices in my head and actually look at what happened and save some of these beautiful moments that I might otherwise forget about because I'm only thinking of the bad things. All right. The next question. We all have that one thing that we carry that someone might find a bit odd. So what is that thing that you carry in your carry-on, and what is the story behind it? So I have a few of these things, and over the 12 years, they have shifted. I've been living out of carry-on luggage for the entire 12 years, so I'm always very, very particular about what it is that I'm taking with me, and it has to have a purpose. Otherwise, I get rid of it. And so at one point, I was really into high-end coffee. And so I traveled with a hand grinder with an AeroPress to make sure that I always was able to get the best coffee in my mornings. And this was actually a really great way for me to get involved in the local coffee scene and find an activity very quickly to get me social, like get out to a coffee shop, find a nice coffee shop, get some local beans and like try it out. But I've stopped drinking coffee so much. And when that happened, I got rid of these things. What other things? I travel with a bunch of pens. So usually like 15 to 20 pens. And that's because I'm oftentimes in remote places or third world countries, and I have a particular way that I like my journal entries to look. And I like the pen to feel a certain way. So I have a very particular style of pen that I like and that I like to use, and I don't like to use anything else. So whenever I travel or whenever I come home to the US or whenever I'm in bigger cities, I make sure to go to a high-end pen or stationery shop and buy a bunch of black ink pens, usually gel, that are 0.38 millimeters. That's a very specific type of pen. And so I'm oftentimes traveling with a bunch of them, and people are like, why do you have so many pens? And the third thing is I oftentimes get into, as I travel, I oftentimes will pick up little habits or hobbies or things like that. And I especially like hobbies that don't need a lot of things. So juggling, for example, I'm carrying around like 3 juggling balls. A hobby that I got into recently is shibari, which is Japanese rope bondage. So that's another thing that I carry. It's just one piece of rope. And so most people like, what is this for? And it's for a very particular activity. All right. The next question. The world is not always postcard perfect. Can you walk me through a day where nothing seemed to go according to plan and how you turned that around? Yeah, this was a story early in my travels. And at that point, I was really, really embracing the whole go with the flow, like don't plan anything. Up until that point, all of my life, like super diligent, super focused, everything had to be planned down to the minute. And so when I started this trip, one of the things that I was embracing is this idea of going with the flow and not planning anything. And while that was super, super fun, I remember very early on hitting the downside of that, which is I had come back from a trip to New Zealand and I had flown into Sydney. And I was expecting to just roll in, waltz into a hostel and get a room for the next week. I didn't really have anything planned. The problem was, and what I didn't realize is that day I was flying in on it was either rugby or Australian League football, one of those two things, but it was the equivalent of their Super Bowl. And it was happening in Sydney that day. So there was absolutely nothing available except for like $300 to $500 a night. And that would have absolutely ruined my budget for the next couple of months. And it's like I had this money kind of allocated for specific adventures. And the thought of spending it on a night in a hotel was just like something I did not want to do. So I refused to give up. And I just remember going to hostel after hostel after hostel after hostel after hostel. And every single one of them, no room, no room, no room, no room. And so I started having this feeling of like, what am I going to do? And so I remember thinking like, well, I think this is just a night where I am going to be homeless, right? I'm going to sleep in the park. I'm going to sleep on a bench, whatever it took so that I didn't have to pay this money. And then I'll just like leave in the morning because I just spent the whole day looking for hostels. And so I remember walking around and my idea was I was going to buy a box of goon, which in Australia is boxed wine. And my idea was that I was just going to get blitzed and then use the inside bladder as a pillow. So I bought the box of goon. I was looking for a place that I was going to spend the night. And I came across this building that had a stairway going up. And so I just took the stairway up to the top. It was a gate, locked, and I kind of went around it. And up at the top, there was this beautiful, absolutely beautiful, like rooftop with a grill and a couch and cushions. And so I ended up spending the night there. And it was this moment of like, wow, things always work out. And even though I couldn't find a hostel, this story became one of the ones that I often tell around my travels. All right. The next question is, you've been on the road for 12 years. If you could go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice at the start, knowing what it is that you know now, what would that advice be? I think that piece of advice would be to let go of expectations on what you think it needs to be and have a little more faith and trust. And let yourself be surprised and delighted by what is coming to you. And I have a story recently that really illustrates this. And I had a friend come and visit me in Bali. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to spend the evening having a bottle of wine by a bonfire. And so that was the plan. And I remember thinking, I don't know exactly, kind of in a smaller area. And so I remember thinking like, I don't know exactly where to get a bottle of wine. And so my idea was, we'll just go from gas station to gas station to gas station until we find a bottle of wine. And as we were kind of figuring out what to do, my friend, we were up in this cafe that had like a beautiful view. And she was looking at the view and she's like, hey, where do you think that road goes? No idea. And so she said, let's find out. So jumped on my scooter, her on the back. We found this road and we took that road as far as it could go. And the road dead ended into it's kind of like a hotel / resort. And so we got out and we were looking around and they had a restaurant. And so we went up and asked, do you guys sell wine? And they said, yeah, but we only sell it by the bottle. And we asked, can you take it away? And they said, yeah, of course you can. And this was this moment of, if I had been so focused on what I had planned, what my expectations were of going to gas station to gas station to gas station looking for a bottle of wine, I would have said no to this adventure that my friend proposed. And I would have missed out on this absolutely surprising and delightful way to get my desires met, which was a bottle of wine. This was just so much better than anything I could have ever planned. And so that would be the piece of advice that I would go back and give myself is don't try and plan so much. Let yourself be surprised and delighted. Okay, the next question. There is always a moment when the unfamiliar becomes familiar. Is there a time where a foreign country started to feel like home, even if just for a moment? Yes. This reminds me of one of my favorite stories, which is when I was in Jordan, this was the first time I'd ever been to the Middle East. And this was a culture that it was extremely unfamiliar to me. And so I was spending the day in Petra, which is these ancient ruins, absolutely. And as I was walking around, I was looking kind of at the sites and also just killing time. I was there for the whole day. And as I was walking around, a shopkeeper asked me if I would like to come in and have some tea with her. And so this was new for me, but I said yes. And so she brought me into the back of her shop and it was her with a bunch of friends and she poured me some tea and we just started talking. It was such a beautiful moment because even though we are from completely different places, completely different beliefs, completely different culture, there was this element of familiarity where we were all sitting around eating and drinking. And there was just something about this this action that we as humans all have in common, eating and drinking, and how even in that smallest of a connection, right, this thing that we do every single day without thinking about of it, there was this feeling of like, wow, we are the same. And so we had a wonderful lunch. At the end, she invited me to come meet her family and stay with them for the night. And she was a Bedouin, so they're very nomadic. And so in Petra, they have these caves that they are allowed to stay in. And so she invited me to come back and see the cave. And again, this is something that is so unfamiliar to me, like living in a cave in the earth. And so I said, okay, I just had this beautiful connection with her. And so she invited me back. We went in the evening. Again, I had this moment of like, wow, we are all the same. And she had brought me to her cave and her family was cooking dinner. And slowly as the sun set, the entire community, all of her friends and family started coming into the cave. And at one point, there was at least 20 of us sitting around the outside of the cave. And they are all speaking Arabic, and I don't speak Arabic. So I was just kind of sitting there being quiet. And my friend turns to me and asks like, oh, do you know what we're talking about? I said, no, I don't. And so she began to share that they were talking about ghosts. And the conversation was who believed in ghosts and what their purpose was. And I remember having this moment of like, wow, we are like, I have had these same conversations with my friends. And it was so interesting to see that even though I didn't speak a lick of Arabic, just by the body language and the tone of voice, I could see who believed in ghosts, who had had experiences with the supernatural, and who thought that it was all a load of shit. And it was just, again, this moment of like, wow, I am in a place that is just so different than anything I have ever been in. And yet somehow like this feeling of home, it doesn't require like anything that I am used to, but it's a feeling of connection. It's a feeling of community. It's a feeling of love. I just remember being so grateful for that moment, for that woman who invited me and gave me this experience to realize that, oh yeah, like, even though this place is so unfamiliar, at the same time, it is more familiar than anything I've ever. Okay, the next question is, what is the most surprising way that this lifestyle has impacted your relationships? Both the ones that you have made on the road and the ones that you have left behind. I think the biggest way that this has impacted my relationships is the realization that all we have is this moment right now. Oh, it's touching me thinking about that. And that in my travels, right, there are connections that I've made that are just so fleeting and so beautiful at the same time. And on top of that, there is this realization of like all these beautiful connections that I have left behind or that I'm continually leaving behind. And so one of the ways that this lifestyle has really impacted my relationships is this feeling of not wanting to hold back, right? As a friend of mine once said, like, put all the meat on the grill. Don't save anything because you don't know when this person is going to leave, when you are going to leave. And you might only have this moment to tell someone that you love them, to tell them how you feel, to smile, to celebrate. And it's been such a beautiful lesson for me to, don't hold anything back. All right. The next question is that many people dream of traveling the world, but you make it happen. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about living this lifestyle? I think the two biggest misconceptions are that it is expensive and that it is lonely. And while both of these can be true, they're also massive misconceptions. I think that you can live a life on the road for just as much or many times much, much less than you are living at home, especially if you are living in the Western world, if you're living somewhere in Europe or in the United States of America, for example. Oftentimes, these lifestyles are extremely expensive, and living a life on the road, you can oftentimes live for much more inexpensive. And the second misconception is that it's lonely. And while yes, this is also true, I think there is a massive difference between solitude and loneliness. And one of the beautiful things that has come from this lifestyle for me is the ability to be comfortable by myself, to feel safe by myself, to not need validation externally. And of course, this is a practice that goes on and on and on, and I don't think will ever be solved. But living a life on the road has been such a powerful way for me to come back home to myself and to feel safe in that. And while there are times where I feel lonely, and that I think is just a part of being human. I know that when I wasn't traveling on the road, there were also times where I felt lonely. And so just because you're living in life on the road, that doesn't increase or decrease the chance for you feeling lonely. Like, I think that's a very, very normal human emotion. And it's not something that we should try to avoid or to shame ourselves about, but instead really allow ourselves to feel that loneliness and then let ourselves be touched by that loneliness and do something about it or not. And the next question, and I absolutely love this one. Imagine your journey is a book. What would the title of the chapter be that describes your most transformative experience? And what would be a summary of that chapter? Whew. I think the title would be something along the lines of Embrace Pain. It's beautiful and an indication of a well-lived life. And this would be a very, very long chapter, but it would describe the story of my heartbreak. Went through a pretty deep and painful heartbreak about a year and a half ago. Wow, that experience completely transformed me and helped come back and rediscover parts of myself and authentic versions of myself that I've been afraid to embrace. And it was so painful, but my go-to is to try and get rid of pain. Pain is bad. Get this away, go back to normal. Everything is happy, hunky-dory. And this experience showed me that if I am loving deeply, if I am trusting deeply, I'm doing all of these things that kind of, to me, indicate a beautifully well-lived life, then of course there is going to be pain. Humans are inherently flawed, and even though we are trying our best, there are going to be times where we will disappoint each other and won't live up to expectations. But if I am loving, if I am trusting, then inevitably comes with pain because we are imperfect creatures. And so through this experience, I realized the depth at which I can feel and allow myself to feel my pain indicates the depth at which I can also feel pleasure and joy. It's been such a transformative experience. All right. The next question is, people say that travel changes you. Can you share a moment when you realized that you were not the same person as you were 12 years ago? And yes, this happened quite recently. When I started this lifestyle, I was, on the go, moving around quite quickly, staying in places for weeks, month at the most. And after I went through this past breakup about a year and a half ago, there came a point as I was moving through my own healing journey where I had this realization of, I want to see if this moving around style of living still appeals to me, because up until then, I was living with my partner. COVID had just happened, and we had been kind of hunkered down in Bali for longer than I had been ever. Right? And so I started having this feeling of like enjoying being settled. But after the heartbreak and after I'd kind of gone through this healing, there was this awareness of like, oh, maybe I'm not quite done living this very nomadic lifestyle. So I left Bali and went on what turned into a 9-month trip around the world. I remember very distinctly as I was coming towards the end of that 9 months and landing back in Bali and having this realization of like, no, I am done with that style of travel. This living out of a backpack, jumping from place to place, always on the go, never really feeling settled. And while it's super fun, I just had this realization of like, I am done with that. I am ready to like settle down and not move around so much. And so that was a moment when I realized like, wow, I am a very, very different person than the person that started this journey 12 years ago. All right. The next question is, let's pretend that you had to settle down in one of the 43 countries that you have been to. Which one would you pick? What is the story behind that decision? And this is such a hard question for me to answer. It is, as I've kind of started to come into this feeling of like wanting to settle down more and more, this question comes up like, well, where do I want to be? Where do I want to be? And I honestly, if I would have found a solid answer to that, I think I would be living there. And I think the number one place on this list is Bali. And I just love the community that I have there. I love the lifestyle that I can live there. I love the culture there, the food there, the temperature there. There are just so many things that I love about living. Like, I don't know if I could be there like all the time, because on the same time, like all the things that I love, there comes a time when all those things turn into annoyances, and I can feel myself like getting so activated. And so I don't know if I will ever be able to settle just in one place. So the other options would be a place like Mexico. And one of the reasons I love Mexico is that it is so close to the US. So being able to get home and see my family is much easier. That's a 4 to 6 hour flight as opposed to, and it's direct, right? I can find these direct flights as opposed to Bali, which is oftentimes over 24 hours to get home. The other place I would consider would be somewhere in Europe. Where in Europe? It would probably be somewhere in the south, right? Because I love warm weather. So someplace like Portugal or Spain. But yeah, that's a tough question. If I had to choose right now, I still don't have a solid answer for that question. All right. The next question is a very, very specific question from one of my really, really close brothers. And the question is, where does Blazing Swan rank among the parties that you have been to over the past 12 years? Blazing Swan is Western Australia's version of Burning Man. And I have to say, Blazing Swan ranks up there among the top, if not the top party experience that I've had over the 12 years. At one point I was living in a van in the US, and at the end of that, it was like a 7-month road trip. At the end of that trip, we ended that trip at Burning Man. So I have been to the actual Burning Man. I've been to Blazing Swan twice. I lived in Berlin for the summer and went to a lot of their raves and parties. And while those are also up there, I have to say that Blazing Swan ranks among the top. And one of the reasons is that I was able to go there and have like a community, because my friend invited me, and he has been a part of the burner community for 12 to 15 years. I was able to roll into this party and have what felt like a family. And that is one of my biggest lessons at this lifestyle, is that it honestly doesn't matter the experience, right? What matters is the community, the people that you are with, that completely makes or breaks it. I can be in the most beautiful place with people that I don't enjoy, and I will always choose a experience where I'm with people that I love and cherish and who love and cherish me. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing. Of course, if we're doing something amazing, that just adds to it. But I would always pick good people and a shit experience over an amazing experience with shit people. And so that's one of the things that I think has made Blazing Swan such a core memory and such like a beautiful experience is the people that I got to meet or that I was with during that time. All right. And the next question, and this one really made me think. If someone gave you $5,000 to start a long-term travel journey and experience as much as you can with that $5,000 and spread it out as long as you can, what would be your strategy? And so there's two parts to this question, I think, right? Where one is understanding the most expensive part of travel, my travel over the past 12 years has always been accommodation or transportation, right? Planes, trains, automobiles, and then where I'm staying. So if I had $5,000 and I was really trying to make this stretch as long as possible, one of my strategies would be to figure out how could I get extremely low cost accommodation and transportation. And so in my experience, the best way to do that is to basically volunteer my time and energy in exchange for room and board. So I would find some type of workaway or like woofing type thing where I could live in exchange for providing my energy. And that would allow me to save a bunch of money on accommodation because that's oftentimes the biggest expense. And especially if they're feeding me as well, like, boom, you could stretch $5,000 indefinitely. If I still wanted to travel during that, right, like figure out ways where I could hitchhike or, split costs with other travelers, right, renting a car or like jumping on these low cost buses to get place to place and doing it in a place where the lifestyle is as inexpensive as possible. Southeast Asia, South America, Africa, and staying away from some of these more expensive places like Europe and the US. If I'm looking at it purely from a travel standpoint, that would be my answer. But knowing what I know, like my own, I've been living like this for 12 years. And the only way that I've been able to do that was to figure out a way to make an income while I'm doing this. So if I was going to answer this question for myself, if I was given $5,000, how would I stretch this out as long as possible? And let's just say I'm starting from scratch, right? I would take that $5,000 and invest into my own knowledge. And I would use it to help me learn a skill that's greatly in demand that I can do remotely. So, that would be high ticket sales, right? Becoming like a salesman and learning how to close people so that I get paid commission. It would be copywriting. So learning how to write in a way that I could get hired as like an advertiser or writing sales pages for people. Or I would learn a skill like video editing or graphic design. These four things I think are the most lucrative ways that you can make money remotely, apart from starting your own business. But this would be the fastest, right? Invest in myself, learn a skill, and then go get hired so that I can do a job remotely. And then that would allow me to travel indefinitely. The next question is that when it comes to entrepreneurship, what is the business model that you have seen work time and time again for people that want to be a digital nomad or that want to live a life on the road? I've been living like this for 12 years and I've seen and met people making money from their computer in so many different ways. It's like, honestly, the sky is the limit with your creativity and your drive and your focus. But there is one thing that stands out among all of these things, right? If I had to break it down into a strategy across all of them, and that is find a problem and solve it for the person in a way that surprises and delights them. And if you can do this consistently, you will have a successful business. Find the problem and solve it in a way that surprises and delights the person that you're solving. And the reason why this works so well is that you're helping someone and you're giving them value. And you're doing it in a way that leaves them delighted. And so if you can do this, you also don't have to market, because that person will be your biggest fan and they will go out and share the results that they got from you. And if you can start to do this over and over and over again, you will always have a job. And so this is what I have seen work time and time again for people that I have met, for people that I've worked with, for myself as well. The next question: what are some habits and rituals that you use to stay grounded, or that you use to significantly increase your happiness while you're living a life on the road? One of my rules while I'm traveling, if I'm trying to start a new habit or if I'm trying to maintain habits, I have 24 hours to do those things when I arrive in a new place. And so that's the first thing, right? Like, whatever it is that I know keeps me healthy and happy, I have 24 hours to do them for the first time. And that helps me lock in the habit immediately when I arrive in someplace new. This has been so powerful for me to create and sustain habits, is that when I move to a new place, if there's something new I want to implement in my life, get it done within 24 hours. And that helps me build it as a trigger as I'm in this new place. So for example, running. I was living in Barcelona and I wanted to become a runner. This is something that I wanted to have as part of my routine to keep me healthy. And so that first day, I made sure to get up early and go for a run. And because I did it that first day, all of a sudden, because like everything is new and different, my brain basically latches on into, okay, like this is what we do. So I found myself all of a sudden, never being a runner in my life, consistently waking up to run. But on top of that, the two biggest things that I have done that I've kept with me for pretty much this entire time and that have significantly changed my life is journaling, meditation, and exercise, right? So if I had to pick three things, those would be ones that I highly recommend to everyone. And this kind of takes care of body, mind, and soul. And the next question is, looking back at your 12-year journey, how have your reflections in your journal changed since when you started to now? I would say the biggest way that my reflections have changed is in my ability to capture moments that surprise and delight me. I have journaled about every single day over these 12 years. One part of that practice is to save at least 3 to 5 highlights from my day. And when I look back at the start of this journaling habit, those highlights were super simple, very brief, not a lot of detail, just like went on a fun walk, caught up with a friend, laughed about this joke. Super, super quick, super, super brief. And what I noticed, one of the massive benefits of my journaling habit has been the gratitude practice. This ability to start to realize, realize this idea that it's always a choice. It's my choice on how I react to situations. And I realize what's important for me is to always have this aspect of gratitude. That doesn't mean to bypass the shitty feelings and to pretend like they don't exist, but it has been so massively beneficial to consistently have this practice of gratitude, that even though things are shitty and even though I can acknowledge the shitty things, also being able to acknowledge the beautiful things, the moments that brought me joy, the moments that made me smile. And so what I notice is, as a very powerful practice for me, is that to go back and review my journal entries and relive these highlights, these moments of gratitude. And it just constantly recalibrates how I'm seeing the world. I have a very violent inner critic. Can say some pretty messed up things. And so sometimes I find myself saying like, oh, you're not doing enough. You need to be doing more. You're so lazy, these types of things. But when I can go back and review these journal entries and relive these moments of these highlights, these moments of gratitude, and things that brought me joy, all of a sudden I realize like, oh, wow, I'm actually doing a lot. Oh, wow, this is such a beautiful life that I get to live. Oh, wow, I am constantly surrounded by magic and beauty. And so what I noticed is that when I would go back and read these highlights and I would just have these very brief things, it was very hard for me to go back to those moments and relive them and re-up those bits of joy.
And so over the years, I would say one of the things that has drastically changed is my ability to capture these moments and the words in which I use and the time that I take. Because on top of that, I also don't want to be spending hours and hours and hours capturing these moments. So how can I strike a balance between being super brief and taking too long? And where is the middle ground where I can, capture just enough so that when I'm reviewing it later, I can be taken back to the specific moment of time and feel that magic, and also, not take so long. And so I would say that's the biggest change is this ability to capture these moments of joy and to do it in a way that allows me to be transported back into time, to slow down, really, really take time to smell the roses. And it has been such a powerful practice for me. And it's something that I feel so called to share with the world, right? Like journaling and self-reflection has completely changed my life. And so this is also one of the questions I get, like while I've been traveling, right? One of the things people notice about me is every morning I'm sitting down to write and taking time to reflect and taking time to practice gratitude, a myriad of other things that my journaling habit has transformed into. And so this is one of the things people often ask me is like, oh, wow, I love how consistent you are. How do you do that? How can I do that? And so, yeah, it's something that I love to share with people. So it's a bit beyond the scope of this video, but if you're curious about starting a journaling habit for yourself, one of the things that I have a question that I use to help people build a journaling habit for themselves, because one of the things that's so important for staying consistent is that you have a very, very clear direction of where you're going. And so I have a question that I actually, the first time I heard this was during my travels, and it was just so powerful for me. So I will put a link somewhere below this where you can find that question. If you're curious about starting a journaling habit for yourself, you can use that to get yourself on the right path. And so hopefully it's helpful for you. Okay, that is it. Wow. There was so many other questions, but I kind of picked and chose my favorite ones. And hopefully this was entertaining for you. Hopefully there was something useful in here. Hopefully you learned something. If you had aha moments or there was something that you piqued some interest in your mind, please feel free to send me a DM on Instagram. I will leave a link somewhere around here so that you can do that. I love, hearing takeaways, aha moments, anything that you found useful. So get in contact with me. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for spending this time with me. And thank you for being on this journey with me. And here's to another 12 years of living life on the road out of carry-on luggage. Thank you so much. Sending you my love wherever you are in the world. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Peace.